Welcome back. You, of course, are still live with Expresso as we continue with our discussion on the national lockdown starting at midnight tonight in an effort to curb the spread of the coronavirus, to flatten the curve. Please welcome back Interim Federal Leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, who I've been plugging for information. Thank you. This has become quite self-indulgent, so I really do appreciate the time with you. But there are some key questions that I think all of us are asking at the moment. Maybe one of those that is very front of mind. What will happen if I don't adhere to the rules of lockdown? What are the repercussions?
Well, because there's been a state of national disaster called, there are legal implications for failure to comply. We've already seen a KZN businessman being arrested for failing to comply with the quarantine. But if people...
And tried for
attempted murder.
Attempted murder, which is severe,
Which is essentially it, because we must understand, while we may feel healthy and the virus may not affect us, if we exit our homes and we come into contact with people with compromised immune systems or elderly people, we really put them at great risk, Graham, of serious
tantamount
infection.
to handing out a loaded gun and just waiting for it to fire. What if I have an emergency or I'm receiving treatment for a more severe condition that I regularly go to? Will I need a pass? How will I be able to access the medical facilities that are unrelated to COVID-19?
Well, people would still be able to go out and receive medical treatment, and that is why the regulation says that that is one of the reasons you could leave your home. So if somebody does stop you, you just indicate, I'm going to clinic X or pharmacy Y to obtain my medication or to seek medical assistance. What you don't want is people at home with serious medical conditions unable to access the treatment they want. So people will be able to seek the medical treatment, and that is also why hospitals, doctors, nurses, pharmacies are going to remain open so that our citizens can access that.
I don't have to consider a home birth. I'm not going to have to.
No, you're very lucky, Graham. You can be hands-off on this one.
We are going to have a great number of police and army personnel patrolling our streets. I think that's an area that just on its basis point makes us quite nervous. We're not used to being policed, or maybe it conjures images of a time in our history that we do not want to connect with again. And I've got to speak openly about that because this is something that does worry me. Will I need to show my identification? What kind of treatment? Is there a mandate as to how we are going to be treated during this time of, now that a national state of emergency has been declared? What rights do we have in that space?
Well, nobody in peacetime wants to see the police and army on the streets. It's a really disconcerting feeling for everybody, but we must understand we're in uncharted territory and we're on a wartime footing, basically, against a virus that poses significant risk.
Probably the greatest threat.
It's our greatest threat in post-democratic South Africa. I would make sure that people carry with them their driver's license, their identity document, in case that's required at all times if you're traveling outside of your home. And to make sure that, I think that we must be polite and accommodating to the security services, but they likewise have a duty, I believe, to be fair and considerate to the needs of the community as well. I think that if we can have an understanding of mutual respect between us as citizens and the armed services, and security services, I think that we'll be fine. I think if there needs to be that respect. And we also need to remember this is not a state of emergency. So civil liberties are still important in this context, and we must ensure that we don't allow a tyranny to set in over this period under the guise of these measures. So as members of parliament and as civil society, we need to keep an eye on the conduct of these security services.
Perhaps why MPs have been deemed an essential service at this particular time. How far will we be allowed to travel? Are we going to be stuck in our suburbs? Are we going to be able to travel along national roads? Will we need a ramped up? Will we need a permission slip to be able to travel further? How far will we be able to...
Interprovincial transport is going to be a no-no. Obviously, what you should do is to try, with as short a journey as possible, access your medical care and your facility. Obviously, if you are receiving treatment for, let's say, a cancer and you need to go and have your chemotherapy, or you're on dialysis, and you are going to be able to go and see your usual doctors and the usual hospitals, no matter what the distance that may be to your home. But people should really just try and be clever and smart about this thing and limit the distance that they have to travel, and limit the interaction with other South Africans during this period.
The quicker we can get a handle on it, the quicker we can
go back to normal.
Yeah, flatten that curve and end the 21 days or ensure that it doesn't get extended, because that is also a possibility that could be out there. Let's get into a few more of the comments that you thankfully have been putting through this morning. So thank you so much for everyone who's connected. This coming from Molo Shabalala saying, is it true that today at 4 p.m. people should be at their homes by that time? Will we be restricted up until at any point before 12 o'clock tonight?
No, the measures come into place at midnight Thursday evening, this evening. But really, people shouldn't be using this as a time to YOLO.
For sure.
But people
don't have your block party tonight in preparation.
Please just make sure that we are limiting already the number of people you come into contact, and making unnecessary trips or unnecessary panic buying is not required at this time. You will be able to have food and water and all your essentials. Supermarkets will remain open. People will be able to access those things. But from midnight tonight, the regulations kick in. But it doesn't mean we can't be doing what we can to flatten the curve
now. Right now. Tyro Tai Mering saying, good morning to all. Are companies like grocery stores allowed or supposed to provide transport for staff to work during the lockdown period?
I imagine there will be regulations that are put in place about how staff are moved around. I think some employers are already, particularly the bigger chains, are already looking at how they can get the employees to work. Some of them looking at accommodation facilities close to the grocery stores so people can access, particularly grocery store workers are going to be able to access there. But even when you go to the grocery stores, you're going to see there's a very strong regime of sanitizing, of social distancing within the stores. Some of the stores very innovatively place stickers on the floor where shows you the right distance to stay away from people, and those are going to have to be strictly adhered to. But go in, avoid people, get what you need, and go home. I think that's the key message.
And especially today, because there will be an influx of people. A couple of the shops that I visited yesterday, none of that was being adhered to because that panic had set in. So you don't want to create a massive influx now before we go into lockdown. It has to be adhered to from right now. I'd like to know, and this is coming from Carmen Hendricks, I'd like to know if the courts will be open during lockdown. I have to be there on the 9th of April. The police station cannot give me an answer, and no one is answering any calls at the court.
No, the Chief Justice has given direction that the courts will stay open in some instances. And I think that what she needs to do is just make contact with the investigating officer or with the clerk of the court that she's required to be into to establish whether that court will be sitting. They're going to hear essential cases, but also it'll be very restricted to, my understanding is just the legal teams that are
if someone fails to, because of whatever reason, not to make it into that, do you think there will be recourse, or that will they be given concession in that
I think there'll be an understanding that this is a lockdown period and that people are not... but if you have been subpoenaed, I would really recommend making contact with the clerk of whichever court you've been subpoenaed at to try and find out what time you have to be there, or whether you're required to be there, or whether the case is going to proceed or not.
Okay, but the courts are still open. Gary Okamp, who's a regular contributor to the show, so good morning, Gary. Hope that you and yours are safe. Saying, morning, my mother lives about 2 kilometers from me, and she has absolutely no means of getting to a grocery store. She also has limited mobility, sometimes uses wheelchair. Question, am I allowed to buy emergency groceries or medicines and take it to her? This has to happen in my case because I've put a ban on my 65-year-old mom leaving the house.
Obviously, you want to keep elderly people as far away from general public contact because they are the most vulnerable group to the virus. I'm sure that there will be ability to be able to go and assist the elderly. You can't have people sitting at home unable to access medicine, unable to access groceries, etc. We've got a very large differently abled population in South Africa who don't have the mobility, and interactions and facilities need to be made available. So I'm sure if it's for a weekly grocery drop or a medicine drop, it'll be fine, but please take the precautions that are required then. Sanitize your hands, make sure you sanitize whatever you're handing over. because you don't want to compromise the immunity, particularly of older South Africans.
Of elderly people. We're going to try and get through a few more of your comments and questions. So thank you again so much for staying connected with us all. Absolutely vital questions that I think we are all sharing. And then we're going to delve a little more into the personal aspect of this experience, because it's something that I think as a species we are all experiencing on a very human level as well. But thanking again, John, for giving us his time and for being so open as well.